The Africa Yoga Project has trained over 40 Kenyan yoga teachers. These young Kenyan leaders now teach free yoga classes in their communities, see their world and be inspired by their voice in our new book, Portraits of Empowerment and Peace. Support our programs in these communities. Purchase the book and learn more about our programs at africayogaproject.org.
Hi, my name is Eric Shaw, and this is the Big Happy Day video series. Today I want to talk about where yoga comes from. There's a little mystery about where it comes from. Not a lot of people know. It's a knowledge that hasn't been completely disseminated in our American tradition of yoga yet. I want to talk about the ancient origins of yoga, and within the ancient origins of yoga, I want to talk about a specific source, which is called the Upanishads. Upanishad is a name for a group of about 13 texts. Sometimes the numbers that we refer to are various. There's a group of these texts, and they're called canonical. They're the main text that we look at. And sometimes the numbers are expanded to, say, around 15 and as few as 11. But I'm going to throw out the number 13 because that's what the Indian tradition mainly focuses on. These texts are all called Upanishads, and there's lots of kinds of Upanishads, but these particular texts are what are called canonical. They're primary to the tradition. They're what's called Shruti. They're the texts that were revealed to the sages. To the sages, it's like they had a direct line to the divine when they heard these. An Upanishad itself means to sit down near. And many of these Upanishads, the kind of pedagogy they use, the teaching method they use, is to frame the knowledge within the dialogue of a guru and his student. And so to sit down near means a guru or a student sitting down next to his guru to learn, sitting at his knee, sitting at his foot. So within these Upanishads, which were produced from about 800 years before the birth of Christ, before the Common Era, to about 200 years into the Common Era, we first see the description of yoga and the use of the word yoga, union, used like we know it today. There's one other mention of it in the Vedas, and we'll talk about that in another video a little bit before the Upanishads. But in these 13 canonical Upanishads, we start to have the kind of body technologies that are under the rubric of yoga described for the first time. They arose at the same time, or a little bit before, but coterminous with the arising of Buddhism, and Buddhism was also using yogas to transform individuals. Within the Upanishadic system, which is sourced back through what we call Hinduism or the Vedic tradition, sometimes we call it the Brahmanic tradition, as apart from the Buddhist tradition, we get technologies such as mantra, Pranayama, breath practice, Pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses. We don't get physical posture, but we do get approaches to self-transformation that are designed for individual practice. Yeah? So it moves away from a context that existed at the time in the Indian tradition on the Gangetic plain, which was the kind of north-central part of India along the Ganges River, where all these cities were arising and starting to have different needs that departed from the previous era, where there was ritualistic forms of practice. So we're moving away from ritualistic practice in this early society of India, starting about 800 years before the birth of Christ, and starting to codify practices that individuals can do in the relationship to a guru, rather than in a ritual in a social situation, which will produce individual transformation. And of course, that's the signature of yoga today, and part of the reason it appeals to us today is because it's still doing that same kind of thing. It's outside of a larger context of a massive institutional religious structure, and it's something that we can take into our own homes and transform ourselves with. And it started 2,800 years ago. So we'll move a little bit more along this theme in the next video. Thank you for watching. I'm Eric Shaw. Blessings on your year, blessings on your day.